So this is a small video where I'm gonna walk you through how to rig a gun for Pavlov to use as a custom gun. Because the video already up on the custom guns, you kinda need to have a gun already rigged for it to work. So here I'm just gonna walk through how I usually do it. So this is just like a rifle template to show you the size that you can scale your own gun to. This will be linked in the description along with another file which has a pistol if you prefer to scale it to the pistol size. So just some short tips on how to move around the view in Blender, because this is Blender 3D if you haven't used it before. So if you hold down middle mouse button, you rotate the camera view, and if you hold down shift and the middle mouse button, you pan it around like this, and then you can zoom by using the scroll wheel in and out. These buttons out here to the side, you can use those alternatively. If you click on the zoom, you can move your mouse up and down to zoom. If you click on the hand, you can move your mouse around to like pan the view. And if you click on this ball up here and just move it around, you can orbit the camera. So that's just an alternative to the hotkeys. If you click on these letters, the different letters on the axis, you can snap your view, which we're gonna use at some point, so you can snap the view around the gun for better view. So now that you know how to move around a bit, what we're gonna do is want to import our own custom gun. So you go to File and Import, and then you need to find the file type that your custom gun is in. So for example, the one I'm gonna use is a DAE file. So I'm just gonna find that real quick. Here we go. And now it has been imported in here. As you can see, this one looks a bit weird because it's transparent. That's due to the material, or rather to say the collection of textures on the gun. So if you click on your custom gun, if it looks weird or anything, you can see, you can click on this little like red circle out here and you can see its material. The material on this one makes it transparent. That's a very rare case. I've never seen it before. So the easiest way to do would be to just click this to remove the material so you can actually see the gun. Now that you have the gun here, the first thing you need to do is rotate it to be in the same orientation. If it already is, that's good. But what you can do is go to the tools over here, where we have move, rotate, and scale. So if you click on the rotate, there comes this little ball up here with the different colors circles, which are the axis to rotate around. So we want to rotate it around the blue axis, so we click this and we can rotate. Now if we hold down Control, it snaps it to increments of 5 degrees. And if you look right up here at the, let me just see, right up here in the top left of the screen, when you rotate, there will be amount of degrees it rotates. So for this one we need to rotate it 90 degrees. There we go. As we can see, it's not quite the right one yet, so we may need to rotate it 5 more degrees. The thing we need to do at least is to make sure that it is straight. A way to do this is, if you come over here, you can see the template collection. This little white box means it's a collection. And if we click on the eye, we can hide it, so we can see only our own gun. Then if we click the Z axis up here, we can snap the camera and we can see that it is straight along the red line, which is what we want. Alright, so let's make this one visible again and orbit the camera back down. So now what we need to do is we need to scale this one up. Now, one way is to click the scale and then start scaling it up, but since we need to scale it, because for example if you scale it only along the red, it gets stretched, which we don't want. So the easiest way to do this is just to press the S key, which is the shortcut key for scale, because that will start scaling it along all axes at the same time. So what we just need to do is to, it'll probably be easier if you go to this view here. So what we need to kind of do is to scale it up to be the same size as the template gun. Then you can, if you have the move selected, you can click the arrows here to move it around. Now the usual way I try and scale it is to try and match the handle and the trigger. So you can see the handle and the trigger is maybe a bit big, so if I press S again and scale it down a tiny bit, move it back. This is yeah, this seems good enough. It's going to be very hard to get it to line up exactly, but that's okay. So now you can see they're sort of in each other, but we don't actually really need the template gun anymore, so you can go up again and hide that. So now that we have the gun here, we need to set its origin, which is the point of origin of the object is what it rotates around and stuff, and it's this little orange dot right here. So what you can see is if I go to the to rotate it, it rotates around this point. That's not what we want. We want it to rotate around this point over here, which is as you can see, it's where the lines intersect. It's the world origin. And it's pretty easy to do. You just click on the gun to select it, then you right click, set origin to 3D cursor. Now the 3D cursor is this little red and white dotted circle right here. Alright, so now that we have set it to that, what we need to do is to rig it. So the first thing we do is we click on it to make sure it's selected, and then you can either press the tab key, or you can click up here and go into edit mode. Now you can see the whole model and all the little triangles. Now if you click up here in the edit mode, you can see there's different ways of selecting. So this one selects points, that's where these lines meet. This one selects lines themselves, which are called edges. And this one selects plates, you could call them, I guess, or the polygons, but in Blender they're called faces. And these little points here, they're called vertices. Now what we need to do is we need to separate this part that are going to be moving, so that'll be the charging handle, which is the little thing you see here, and the trigger, because we want the trigger to move as well when you click the trigger gun. Now the way to do this, the way I do this at least, is over here. When we're in edit mode, we can click this little green triangle here called Object Data Properties. And in here, we get this little part here called vertex groups. Now this gun doesn't have any vertex groups. If there is any vertex group, that makes it a lot easier, because then it may already be separated up. But the thing we need to do is add, I usually add 3 vertex groups with the little plus icon here. And then I double click on them to change the name. And I always have one called body. Then I have one called bolt. And I have one called trigger. So these are the 3 things we need. The body, which is just the whole gun, the body of the gun that moves around and stuff. Then the bolt, which is either the charging handle on a rifle or a slide on a pistol or something like that. And then the trigger, of course. Now what we now need to do is to go into, I usually use face select. Then what we need to do is to select, let's start with the trigger. So you can drag and drop right like this. And then you can see these faces turn orange, that means you've selected them. Now you only select on the one side because this drag and drop doesn't go through faces. Now what you can do when you select this is try and press Ctrl L, which is select linked, or you can go up here and select, and then find select linked right here. And as you see, it says Ctrl L here. Now we're lucky here because this one is apparently linked together. As you can see, this front edge here and this side. However, what's not linked together is this one, that on the other side. So we select those as well. By holding down Shift and drag, you can select multiple faces and stuff. So you just select as much of it as you can see. Make sure to get as much of it as you can see without selecting anything that isn't part of the trigger. If you accidentally do that, you can hold down Control and drag and drop to deselect stuff. Now when we've selected a part of every part of the trigger, we can press Ctrl L again to select the linked. And this looks like the entire trigger has been selected. So what we can do to check is go to the move over here once again. And then we can just move it around and see, yep, the trigger is now selected. So now I just press Ctrl Z or undo to get it back to where it was before I tested the movement of it. And then I find the vertex group over here called trigger, and I select that and I press assign. Now what this does is it takes all these faces, all these vertices we have selected, and it assigns it to this specific vertex group. So if we click somewhere that's not the model to deselect everything, we can go over here to trigger and press select. and it'll select all of this. Now this is what we want. Now we need to do the same thing for the charging handle up here. So we select this one, these pieces, press Ctrl L, and it selects the whole front. So we need to do this for everything on this to make sure everything is selected. This can be a bit finicky at times, so it's just about patience and being very careful with the movement of your mouse. And again, it's just selecting these squares and pressing the Ctrl L to mark linked. Now this can be good enough. For this model it is good enough because, as you see, this little one behind here, that's actually part of the whole body of the gun, so we don't want that. We only want this little piece here. And then when you can see that when we drag it, it acts like a charging handle on the gun. So we just Ctrl Z to get it back. And then we go to bolt. Be sure to select the bolt and not stay on the trigger. You select the bolt and you press once again assign. Now, the way it should be now is that if you select the bolt and press select, only this part gets selected. If you then deselect, press trigger and once again press select, then only this one should be selected. If that's good, if that's how it works, then it's all good. Now what we need to do is we need to get the rest of the body of the gun and select it to the body. So the easiest way to do this, if you set up the bolt and trigger already, is to just press the A key, which selects everything, or you can go up here and select all. Now everything is selected, you can then click the trigger and press not select but deselect. This removes the trigger group from the selection, and you do the same thing with the bolt group, deselect. And now you see we have everything that is the body of the gun. So we can just go to body, the body one, and press assign. Now when we select the body, it selects everything except the charging handle and the trigger. So now that's all set up the way we want. Now another thing we need to do is to actually separate the magazine from the body of the gun. This is because the magazine is a separate object in Unreal Engine for the guns in Pavlov, so we need to move the magazine out and make it a different object. So the way to do this is once again just drag, press Ctrl L on everything, and then you can move it down. So this gun doesn't really have that good of a magazine, but it'll work anyway. It just won't look probably as good as if it was an actual magazine going into the body. But once we have the magazine selected, you can press P and then separate by selection. So again it's P as in Pavlov, and then you press separate by selection. Now this gets this weird orange outline that isn't the usual yellow outline. So now if we go back out of edit mode and click anywhere to deselect, we can see that the magazine and the body is actually two separate objects, which is exactly what we want. So now the first thing we do is now we want to add the skeleton to the gun. So let's just go up here and we can see this one. When we click that, that's the magazine, so we just hide this one to so it doesn't confuse us. And we click the gun, and then we click one of the green pieces to get it to where it's straight on. And then what you do is you go up here, make sure you're in object mode, go up here, press add, find the one that says armature, and then add single bone. If you don't have this little arrow here, then just press the armature button. If this little arrow doesn't pop up, just press the armature button. Now it has added now and auto selected. You can move it around with the red arrow so you can see it. It's this thing. This is called a bone, which is part of the skeleton. So what you need to do, the first of all thing I like to do, because right here you can see you can't see it, so what I usually do is with it selected, the armature up here selected, I go to this little icon here with the green stick person, and then I go to viewport display, and then I check this little box that says in front. Now this will make it's not actually in front of it, it's still inside it, but you will always be able to see where it is. Now what I need to do is to move it somewhere where I like to have it. So let's say this is gonna be the bone for the body of the gun, so I just move it somewhere within the body of the gun, and then I can of course press S if I want to scale it up a bit bigger. I can go into the rotate, click this green one here, hold down Control to snap it, and rotate it so it points forward. So now we have it like this. This is going to be the main bone of the gun, so this should be the one for the body. Then what you can do is, but this is a selection box, you can select the armature and go into edit mode. And as you can see, we can now select parts of the bone. Now what we need to do is select the outermost part, the tip, the little ball at the tip of this triangle, and press the E key. Right, so press the E key as in edit mode. So the E key, and then if you move your mouse, you can see it drags out another bone. So if you hold down Control, this will snap. We can just have it point directly straight. Then we click the body of this bone here, so we have the yellow outline. Then we right click it, go to Parent, Clear, and then when this thing pops up, you press Disconnect Bone. There we go. So now we can actually move this one around freely, and you can see the little dotted line between them. This means that this bone is still connected to this one, as in if this bone here moves, this one will move with it, but it is not connected to the tip of the other bone. So let's say this bone is our trigger. So we move that, drive it over the trigger right here. The last one we need is for the bolt, which is actually on the other side of the gun. So if you just click this green one here, it'll turn it around. So now, once again, we click this tip of the ball of the body bone, press E to pull it out, hold down Control to snap it, and click to place it down. Then you again select the body of the bone, right click, Parent, Clear, Disconnect Bone. And then you move it to where it's on the, about the, so let's say right here, because this is like the charging handle as you see right here. Doesn't have to be exact. This isn't to be exact, this is just to make it easier, but it doesn't have to be exactly on top of it or anything like that. That's not necessary. But it is a good practice to get it pretty close. Now what we need to do is to name our bones, because we need to name these bones here the same as the vertex groups that we made on the gun itself. So if we go back out of object mode, or back out to object mode, and then click on the gun, we can see we have the body, bolt, and trigger groups over here when we are in the green triangle icon. And these names we need to remember because we need to name the bones the same thing. So click on the bones again to select them, go into edit mode, and then with, let's say, the first bone here selected, we go right to this icon here, which is a little green bone, and right here on top is the name of this bone. So this one is the one that controls the body, so we need to call this body, which is the same name as the vertex group we made. This one here controls the charging handle, and we call that group for bolt, so we named this one bolt as well. And this one here we named trigger. So now these are called the same, these bones are named the same as the groups on the gun. The last thing we need to do is to go back out to object mode, and then with the armature selected, the bones selected, we go to this orange square right here, and here we see the name of the armature. This one needs to be changed because Unreal Engine for some reason doesn't like it when it's called armature. So what I usually do is I just call it root. Now what we need to do is apply the scale, because as you can see with the bone selected right here in the orange square, we can see that the scale is not 1. We need it to be 1. Otherwise it's going to scale weird when it gets into Unreal Engine. So the way we do this is we select the armature, and then we you hold down Control and press A. Press the A key with Control held down. You get this menu, which is called the Apply, and you just apply all transforms. And what you will see is that these numbers down here, they will become 1. So all of this, the location and the rotation, will become 0, and the scale will be set to 1, which is what we want. Then we need to do the same thing for the gun itself, so select the gun, so it has the yellow outline, press Control A once again, and apply all the transforms. So now it's all the same size. Now the last step in rigging the gun itself is we need to actually parent it to the bones, so they're connected. So the way to do this is you select the gun itself. Then you hold down shift, like when you want to select multiple vertices or something, and then you click the skeleton right here, the armature. So now that you can see, we have the dark orange line around the gun and the lighter orange around the bones. And when it looks like this, you right click, then you find parent, you go to here where it says with empty groups, right? So right click, parent with empty groups. Now what you will see is up here it changed, so you can no longer see the gun. But if you click this little arrow here and expand it, you can see that this right here, which is called default object in this case, is actually the gun itself, which is now under the armature. Now a way to test if this has worked is to select the armature, go up here, and then select pose mode. Now one of the bones turns blue, which means that it's the one that's selected, and if you click the move tool, we can move and see that the trigger moves with the bone, which again is what we want, so just Control Z to get it back to the normal place. We can rotate this around a bit and select this one. You can see the name of the bone up here, so this is the bolt, and when we move this, we can see the charging handle moves with it. So just Control Z once again, and the last thing to check is the body. And when we move this, the whole thing moves, even the trigger and the charging handle, everything moves. So just Control Z to get it back, and we can now see that the gun has been rigged properly. So now what we need to do to actually export it out to Unreal Engine is we need to right click the root right here, the armature root. Again, this is just the way I usually do it. Select hierarchy, which will select the root and the default object and everything, or the gun. So now everything right here is selected. So now what you need to do is go to File and Export. And then you need to export it as an FBX, which is the one that Blender use. No, not Blender, which is the file format that Unreal Engine uses. So FBX right here. And then you just need to call it something. So I'll just call it a video gun. And now you need to set some settings over here. So first of all, I click limit to selected objects. That means we only get the gun and the armature. Then what I do is I left click right here on mesh. Mesh is another way for object, so that's the gun. Then I hold down shift and click on armature, which is the skeleton. So only these two are selected. Then we need to set the scale to be 0.1. This is to import it at the correct scale into Unreal Engine. Then you set the forward right here to be X forward, and the up, you set this one to be set up. Don't touch any of these three. Then you go to geometry, and here with smoothing, you set it to face to export the face of the models. Then you go into armature, and you remove this little tick in the checkbox that says add leaf bones. So we remove this one. Now what you can then do is you can click this little plus up here at the top under operator presets, and then call it something like Unreal Engine gun export. And okay, so now the next time you want to export something, you can just click this down and click Unreal Engine gun export, and it'll copy these settings here to it. So now I can just press export FBX, and now you can take that FBX we just saved and put into Unreal Engine, and we will have the gun. Now the last part we need is the magazine, which we still need to make. So what I do is I go up here to this object that we hit, which is the magazine. And here you can see I click the little eye icon to make it visible again. Now what I do is I click the magazine object, I go to this view here, so we see it from the front, select the move, and then we need to move it, so I usually do so about the center of the magazine is on the red and white dotted circle, which should be right at the intersection of these two lines right here, the red and the blue line. Then we see that the orange part, the origin is all the way over here, so we just right click it, set origin to 3D cursor once again. So now it's down here. Now I know it doesn't fit with the gun, that doesn't matter. That's something you set up in Unreal Engine, and there is the custom guns in Unreal Engine video for that one, which I'll link in the description. So now that we have the magazine, we just need to make sure that the magazine and only the magazine is selected. So nothing else should have the yellow outline or orange outline, only the magazine. Once again we go to File, Export, FBX. And then it should probably be called something like your gun name and then maybe magazine behind it. Now, a single thing we need to change from the previous export settings is to just remove the armature, so it's only the mesh that gets exported, because this one doesn't have an armature. So we just left click mesh, like so, and then everything should be correct. Oh, that's actually not true. I forgot a step. So you see right over here, the scale of the magazine hasn't been applied yet, like we did with the gun and the bone. So we need to do that first. So it's again, just have this selected, hold down Control A, and then all transforms. So now you see it's all 0, 0, 0, and 1 at the scale, which is what we want. Now, with it selected, we can go to Export, FBX, and then we can set it to magazine, and then just left click mesh when you have everything set up like before. So like we take the preset we made and click mesh, so it's only the mesh, and everything else is just the same, and we export this one as well. So now you will have two FBX files wherever you chose to save it. One will be the gun, and the other one will be the magazine. So you can just import those into Unreal Engine 4, and then you can use those to make a custom gun out of it using the existing video tutorial, which again I will link in the description. Also in the video description will be the download links for the template files. That is the file right here where you have this rifle here that you can use to scale, and the other one which has a pistol. If you are making a pistol, it'll probably be easier to scale it to that. So yeah, that's all there is to it. I know it can probably be a lot, but just follow the steps and it should all be good. Alright.